Welcome into the C3 pod. You're joining us this week as everybody's in a different location, but they should be. And that's because the man in the top right corner, Mr. Brendan Allen, Comiccon.com senior editor, joins us from Bakersfield, California.
Lovely Bakersfield, California.
Sorry, let me clarify. The second largest city in California, Bakersfield, California. I think I've been told that by him. I don't know, 12, 14 times, something like that.
As if it's not second, it's like sixth. People think Bakersfield is like this tiny little town. And it's not. It's huge. Like you can start from my side of town and drive across town for 40 minutes and you're still not on the other side. It's a big place. And by population, it's about the sixth biggest in California. It's somewhere in the top 10. I can't remember the exact ranking, but it's a big place.
And then down in the bottom in the center, wearing his fashionable NWO shirt, which perfect lead in for what I want to kick things off to talk about today. And that is Mr. Brett Lawson, student of the game, Gameday Huddle. He was live out at Good Springs right before the dynamite was discovered. How do you feel about that now that you know that there was dynamite right underneath the place you were sitting?
Bro, that was something else, right? And it's so funny, too, because I was reading a story about something related to dynamite a few days before that. So when you know how algorithms work on social media, when that popped up, it was like some local news affiliate posted on Facebook or whatever. And when it popped up, I'm thinking, okay, my algorithm just tapped into what I was reading before. That's just where we are in 2025. And then when I realized where it was and when it was discovered, and then I started going on social media and seeing all the people who I was just interviewing the other day talking about it. Oh, yeah, it was definitely one of those eerie type of things. But it was also pretty cool because it just goes to show how historically rooted that town is.
Well, and I think to explain to people, because I don't think people understand. So Good Springs is outside of Las Vegas,
right?
It's
Yes.
actually a mining town, right? It was a town that was built off of mining camps.
Absolutely.
Where people would stay and then they would go to work and then they would come back and they would stay there and whatever. And so this is still one of those like good old like old-fashioned areas of Nevada that like not everything is really discovered, right? And the context of this is that there is I believe it's a shop of some kind that's out there. What I don't know if it does manufacturing, car repair, that doesn't matter, right? But they were cleaning out one of their storage facilities, and within this storage facility, it looks like from pictures that maybe like there was like an area where a wall where like some stuff was stuffed in. And then when they moved it, they're like, oh, what's this? We don't know what this is. And dust and dirt everywhere. And they open the box and there's sticks of dynamite in them.
Just like archaic looking sticks of dynamite. Absolutely. And like you said, it's an old mining town. It's essentially now classified as a ghost town. It was initially established in 1913 on a cattle spring. And then it just built from there with actual residents. And before you know it, now it's like kind of just like this little touristy type of place that's kind of embedded in the culture of Southern Nevada. And all the people who are there essentially just live in Sandy Valley and make the commute in. So it's actually really cool. The Pioneer Saloon's an awesome place. I highly recommend checking it out. And if you like, if you're into the biking scene and stuff like that, it's a really popular little stop. But in terms of the dynamite story, that definitely is one that really just puts into perspective, as you said, Steve, how in these old towns all throughout the southwestern desert, you find stuff like that.
Well,
the only thing that sounds like would make that better is if it was sitting in 2 inches of water in a cardboard box.
100%.
Right,
because wet dynamite, that's the really dangerous stuff, right?
Water, because there was like this much dust on top.
Yeah.
Of it.
Oh, exactly. Just cake on top.
It's cool to see. Don't get me wrong. It's a cool story. It's cool to see, and it's like I think it's fun when you're like, oh, there's still unknown things about Nevada and different little towns, and like that's the discovery things, right? And that's what's cool. But also at the same time, like I recall one time in the store that we had downtown, there's a crawl space up above, right? And we for 3 years had never even thought about getting up there, but we had to get up in the crawl space because we were doing something with signage, right? And when we got up in the crawl space, one of our guys had to go to the back and run all of these cables like to the front. And when he did, he comes and he brings a bag, and there's like this old kind of like pleather leather, really, really like tore up duffel bag, right? We pulled it down, and it had like 20 AR clips in it, but they were old AR clips, like old. And you're like, okay, this building's been here since the 40s.
Yeah.
Right. Like the structure of the building, the brick that was laid is still the same brick that was at the building face might be changed a little bit or whatever, but the foundation is the same. And this was like buried back in the corner up in the roof. And you're like, dude, was this at some point like some gangster stash spot? Like,
right. Little hideaway,
weapons or whatever it was. And
Stowaway.
And so then of course we went back up there and had everyone look and make sure that there wasn't like weapons or something up there or whatever, because look, at the same time, there might be something valuable there, So
he's looking at secondary market for like antique guns. He's like, hey, is there a bolt action
dude, I'm gonna tell you something. We sold those for like $30 a clip, and the bag was full, and there might have been like 20, 30 of them.
Steve goes on and Pawn Stars. Now it's the toy / weapons expert, right? Old weapons expert. I love it.
The antique weapons expert. But so we know what Brett got into this last week and everything. Brendan's been over there. Now, Brendan, to share this for everyone, as much as Brendan is nerdy, right? Brendan is 100% a baseball aficionado, like 100% into, and he's into baseball. And I tell you this because it doesn't matter if it's professional, it doesn't matter if it was a little league thing or whatever it is. When he sees things that are unique or different or kind of stand out, he really points some stuff out. And he went on a little bit of it was funny because when he is very passionate about something, and I think everyone needs to know this, when Brendan is super passionate on something, he goes all in, and it is full force when he comes out on the other side. And you may not be expecting it. And that's what happened to us, is all of a sudden
the tank.
He posts up a tweet response to something, but didn't set the context up of what it was. And so there was like a 10-minute period where anybody who saw the message within our group were like, what is this dude even going off on? Like, what is this tangent?
Well, I find it funny, if I may interrupt, just because of my background in sports media, the people he was replying to, just for context, and he'll explain further, it was a Yahoo Sports account on social media who posted an article related to baseball, obviously very relevant for what we have going on right now. And I just found it funny because of all the people who I've never worked at Yahoo Sports, but I've worked in close association with people at Yahoo Sports. In fact, literally right before we came on air, I was on the phone with someone who currently has a position there. And it's just kind of funny because I'm all like, for all I know, I could know someone who was involved in posting or writing that article, but I'm with Brennan, as he'll clarify here now. I'm with Brennan. Like I'm completely baffled how because all the ongoing conversation of the media in today's society is how these headlines are so misleading. And as someone in the media, I sometimes like to downplay that. I'm all like, no, you're just you don't know how to actually read a headline. This is a very misleading headline.
So
they do that all the time.
World Series.
Yeah, 100%. Get those clicks. Got to get the clicks. Yeah.
This is an amazingly entertaining World Series. Like, I mean, the games have been going long. They've been close. They've been tight. It's been back and forth. We've seen some really, really cool stuff. But the headline on Yahoo Sports the other day was Shohei Ohtani is the only player ever to be intentionally walked 4 times in one game. Not one World Series game. They said ever in one game. And we all know that that's nonsense because that record is actually 5 times, not 4. And it's held by Andre Dawson. And that's back from 1990. So it's like, dude, I see that headline. And I didn't know the exact date was May 22nd, 1990 or whatever, but I knew that Dawson had that record. And it's like, how are you putting this headline out? Ohtani doesn't need to be built up like that. I mean, the dude, seriously, he has made his own wing in the Hall of Fame already for the accomplishments that he's done. Things that he's done in a single game. Right. See, when he made, what was it? Like, it was a home run record, but in the home run record, he also had a pitching record and a stolen base record and all in the same game. And it's like, dude, this guy doesn't need you to build him up more than he already is. And 4 times in one game in a World Series game is impressive enough, but it's not an all-time record.
And Brennan, really quick before we move on, I want to bring that up because last night on the broadcast for the Game 4 broadcast, they were explaining how him before for that epic Game 3 that went so long, he got on base 9 times, right? Ultimately, because 4 of those were for the intentional walks and all that. But they had to clarify on the graphic, going back to like Babe Ruth and going back to even before that. There have been other guys who have been on base 9 times or even more, but you had to clarify whether it was a World Series game, whether it was a regular season game, a standard playoff game. Right. And it just made me think, Shohei Ohtani is so good now, and he's going to break so many records throughout this period of time. We're going to see this a lot because we're going to lose track of the context, and those numbers are going to start to blur together because he's just so good and so productive. He's going to reinvent ways to how to do things. And historically, our wires are going to get crossed. Yeah.
Right. Well, and the thing is too, is when you have to compare him to the black and white era, when you have to compare him to the deadball era, when you have to compare him to the pinstripe, you know what I'm saying? Like when you have to go that far back, you can compartmentalize, you know, eras of baseball and eras of sport and eras of whatever, because he is probably the greatest baseball player that's ever played, but you won't ever know that because you can't objectively compare him to Babe Ruth because it's a completely different game. You know, a one hopper over the wall in right field was counted as a home run back then.
100%. So, and baseball's such a numbers based game. It's different with football and basketball where you can kind of just look at the film and analyze the differences there. Baseball, it's applicable because the statistical categories, the analytics added a whole new dimension with sabermetrics, but at their core, the statistical categories are all the same. So it's a great point you bring up. There's these parallels that go back 100 years or even just 10 years. You just have to know where to like make it relevant to what you're talking about.
Well, you know, it's funny too, because what it does is these type of topics and or say titles to an article or whatever it is, these headlines, we get these, and this is where most people get their news. And what's funny is that the response that, you know, it might have been you, Brett, that gave it, which was basically they just kind of asked AI and AI came up with this.
That was Erik who said that. Yeah, that was a good point. We were all laughing, but it's true.
And or Erik, right. And it didn't lay out all the details and everything like Brendan was saying, because when you omit something, right, that can change how everything is. And as soon as you add that in, then all of a sudden it is different, right? And it should have been in World Series history or whatever. And, you know, I think of these same things. So this, what's funny is this thing I want to talk about, it had a headline like that, which basically said, it was premised as this hotel had kicked out a guest and that it was not rightfully done. And then you come to find out that there was a reason why that they thought they were kicking someone out, and they didn't realize who this person was, but they also now haven't done enough to clean it up. But even in the potential cleanup efforts, it's presented as they just basically told them, well, you know what, here's the fix to this. And I'll let Brendan tell the story a little bit more. But once we tell the story, they go, here's the fix to this. And then when the fix to this was to be used, they were told no. And then you start to look into it and you come to find out, oh, well, it had been past the time that was supposed to have been redeemed in or whatever it was. So Brendan, tell everybody a little bit what happened with Miss Chelsea Green.
So Chelsea Green, and I guess this happened in New York, and she was kicked out of a hotel. And Fairmont Hotels in New York offered her a 2-night stay for kicking her out of the hotel. But the reason she was kicked out, if you've ever seen Chelsea Green in the WWE, she wears these very outlandish outfits. So I can imagine what her street clothes look like. And so they thought she was a prostitute. So true. They asked her to leave. Nobody in the lobby was like, no, that's WWE talent. Like nobody stuck up for her, I guess. And she got thrown out. But if you look at the situation, it's like, okay, so this thing happened and she's like, all right, so they offered me this 2-night stay. And then she went to go use the 2-night stay and they were like, no, we're actually not going to do that. So then she goes back and she blasts. So the first time she put it out on blast, and we have an image for that of her tweet. There we go. Man, one night you're wrestling at Barclays, having the time of your life, and the next you're being kicked out of Fairmont Hotels and accused of being an escort because of your outfit. Life is funny. Maybe next year I won't celebrate WrestleMania weekend at the Plaza, or maybe next year I'll celebrate the Plaza. Okay, whatever. Maybe I won't celebrate at the Plaza next year. Laugh. Okay, so she put him on blast on social. So I kind of wonder if it was anybody else and it hadn't got such traction in social media, if they would have just honored it, even if it was outside the window. Because a lot of times hotels will do that kind of stuff. You might miss it by a week or whatever. But when you call and you talk to them, like, look, I got busy, this came up or whatever, they'll go ahead and honor it. But she did put them on blast on social media. Her fans went after Fairmont Hotels. And then they didn't honor it. So I wonder if that's the case. But then I had to wonder, like, why wouldn't you just honor it anyway? Because now there's another whole campaign about them not honoring it, where her fans are going at them again. So it's a situation for real, but it's an interesting one. And I can see kind of both sides of it a little bit. But, you know, it is New York. You got all kinds of contingents coming into the lobbies and hanging out, you know, like, I can see where they might have questioned her. And then as soon as she said, no, I'm here because WWE and one of the stars, whatever, she could have brought up her phone and proved her story instantly.
Yes.
But, you know, you don't know exactly what happened. So.
Right. But what we do know, the facts are, is that at least on what was posted, was that they had told her on this particular thing that it was good to book at that property, not one of their sister properties, and within 1 year. So she was trying to use that credit at another property. And what their statement is it was mishandled by us. Come back to us, and we will do it. This wasn't a corporate.
If I have a voucher for the Luxor, there's 15 hotels on the strip I can use it at.
Yep.
Generally, yes.
Goes back to the casino group, right?
If it's written very specifically in black and white, only redeemable at
one property.
Okay. Right. Then that's what you accepted, or otherwise you get it, you read it, and you go, hey, what if I want to use it somewhere else? Before you get to try to use it somewhere else. See, that assumption is where the problem lies, because in my opinion, a lot of people now take the fraction of information, that headline title,
going back to what we're talking about,
they turn back around, right? And they use that piece of information that didn't say World Series in it, that then took Brendan Allen on a rabbit hole chase and to stand on the soapbox.
Relentless pursuit.
It is Andre Dawson.
Yes.
Right? Like, but that reaction that occurs because Brendan sees the title, and because they omit things from the title, it opens it up to speculation, which in that world isn't a bad thing. Because it creates the discussion of the conversation topic and puts forth, look, we were never going to talk about Yahoo Sports on this show.
Well, in order to know something's wrong, you're going to click on it and say, wait, this isn't right. Let me see if this is a mistake. And then next thing you know, you're on the article for 5 minutes and they get what they want. So it's like, it's someone, I was literally like brought up in that world. You know, the past 10 years, I've been more broadcast than print, but even writing at times, like that's where my first internship was for a local magazine out here. Like I understand the wordplay, and it's one of those things that they have to do it. And it sucks because most of the time it actually goes without any of us noticing. And really, it actually works. I mean, even Brendan understands that being an editor for a website, there's certain ways you have to phrase it. But when you are so kind of like, you know, thinly veiled with it, it's like what Steve says.
They could have put,
you get confused.
Ohtani breaks another record in World Series Game 2, and people would have clicked on the article.
Yeah,
100%.
Because it's Ohtani.
That's what's funny is that, you know, I tell people all the time, there's, if I go, come here, or come here, that is the same thing said 3 times in 3 different ways that you personally can take 3 different ways.
Right.
And that's said verbally. So then when you write something, and look, and if anybody on this podcast, well, besides Eric running the show, would be very aware of how something written can come off very left, it would be Brendan Allen. Like, it's what he does. So he's looking for this, right? He may not been looking at that article for it, but just in his everyday motions, he's looking for it. And, you know, it's funny because when you have an interest or you have things, and this is where this information gets misconstrued all the time, right? This is where the witch hunts get created. This is why, in my opinion, I share it as my opinion, that Trevor Bauer is not back in the Major League Baseball.
Right.
No,
he's not back in Major League Baseball because they're holding what happened against him. They're holding everything that was said after against him. Right. And unfortunately, there were titles out there that just don't look favorably for him, that are written by other sites and whatever it is. And it's all because he wanted to have those conversations and then he responded and said something, and they were able to take half of this sentence, which if it's not finished, it means that it could be 1,000 different things.
It's what they did with Barry Bonds. Like, Barry Bonds is in the Hall of Fame because he didn't like talking to reporters. Like, straight up, that's the only reason. You look at Poppy being inducted and some of the other guys from the steroid era, and you can't tell me it's steroids. You can't tell me it's steroids.
No, definitely. You'll move the goalpost depending on what your particular relationship with that person was. And it's absolutely true because it all goes back to the optics, whether it be in a pretentious way where you roll your eyes because it's about just snobbery, or if it actually has a reason for it because it really is that black of an eye and that bad of a look. And like, that's a perfect way to phrase it, because in our world, and especially in my like sports talk world, there'll be a host who says one thing, the headline for that reel, for that clip, or for that whole segment that's posted for their talk show, their podcast, that will be very, not necessarily misleading, but it'll just be a small little tidbit of what the actual analysis is. But people will just get in their feels in the comments, think, no, he's dead wrong, he's an idiot, without even actually hearing the explanation and the reasoning. It goes back to what we do, for this topical conversations like this. So it's one of those never-ending things where when it works out well, it kind of actually is kind of the media in a good way, and then it's also the dark side of the media. So yeah, it's just kind of portrayal.
Absolutely. Well, giving bad headlines, we come back from the break. We're going to have a discussion. Well, I guess to say it's no season like con season. Well, is it? I don't know. We'll be back right after this on the C3 Pod.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comic-Con.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews, previews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comic-Con.com.
All right, welcome back to the C3 Pod. Of course, I didn't introduce myself last segment, but there was a reason for that, and that's because sometimes I just forget who I am. But no, we're back, and this segment of the C3 Pod is brought to you by our friends at Voodoo Brewery down in the Las Vegas Arts District. Stop by and see them. They have nightly entertainment, lots of cool stuff, craft brews, fun nights, like some of the stuff they come up with, some of the trivia nights and stuff, they'll like theme them or whatever. Sometimes they'll have a hibachi grill out there. Sometimes they'll have corn dog. I don't know. You have to check it out, but definitely go by, see the team there. And we really want to thank them for their support of the C3 Pod. And thank you guys so much. But, guys, we have taken a little bit of hiatus on the show side of things. And I know that we've all had conversations in regards to different shows that have come along and everything. But before I do that, I want to bring in and introduce bottom right corner here, Erik Amaya, our executive producer of the show, has joined us from a secure location. It's nice that it's secure because we know that the location that Brendan comes from is very insecure. So it's a very insecure location. But Erik, how are you, man? And thanks for coming and joining us for this because, this topic about shows and discussing the show scene, I think you're so well rooted into it and know kind of, over the years how the show scene has changed. And we see it all the time, right? Like, I don't think anybody on this would negate when I say this, that the trading card show scene is king right now in the world of pop cultures. It is trading cards and then everyone else, right? And that's going to be, coin shows, toy shows, comic shows, whatever it is. But our world really resonates around the base body of comics and, entertainment, right? Those are the two things. The world of comics becomes entertainment. And then from there, and San Diego Comic-Con obviously is a big part of our culture, the stuff that we watch. We look at all the, stuff that comes out, all of these things. But what we don't necessarily get into is talking about how this show has changed over the years. So tell us a little bit about how the comic world of shows has really changed over the years and kind of how you've seen that trend.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because it feels like I was telling Brendan before we started that the big criticism of San Diego is, it lost the comics, except it didn't. From where it was in my first show was probably 94 or 95. And in terms of square footage, comics still takes up the same amount. That hasn't changed. What happened was they built that expansion in the last couple of years of the 20th century. And all the other stuff ended up in the expansion. So the movie stuff is there, Nickelodeon is there. And it's like the show doubled in size. It wasn't that the comics shrank. And I feel like that's kind of an apt metaphor for everything. It's not that comics lost focus. It's that everything else joined the party.
Right.
And that's kind of a big thing for me anyway, especially when people kind of criticize what San Diego turned into. And it's like, but the comic convention is still there. People make incredible deals like getting jobs in the industry or selling.
It's a hub.
Rare golden age comics. Like comic stuff still happens. It's just that, TV news care about costumes. They care about stars, so it looks like the comics aren't there anymore.
And that's what we were talking about while we were on break. It's like, I asked Brendan, when was the first San Diego Comic-Con? And the date is 1970. And it's all like, think about the adaptations from the source material in so many different mediums, from TV shows to video games, animated series, films. film sagas, film universes, IP, shared universes, all that stuff, trading cards, collectibles. It is branching into so many different avenues now. It's easy to forget that it all started with the comic side of things. So it could seem like it's diminished or overshadowed, but it's just because we're at a point now where it has to represent all aspects of the pop culture across the spectrum. And since all those different adaptations are not necessarily more popular, but have become more at the forefront in many ways, they're naturally going to seem like the focus and the crux of the whole conventions and those Hall H presentations.
Well, and it used to be that, you had these shows, whatever it was, it doesn't matter what your interest was. That was what your interest was. If you were a comic book collector, you collected comics. But now the comic collector doesn't just collect comics, right? He collects toys. He collects the trading cards. He collects memorabilia. He collects whatever these things are, right? Are these, different things. And so what happens is you have a functional show like San Diego Comic-Con, and they're always looking like, how can we grow? Where is our growth? What are our potential? What can we do? Where do the different places come from, right? Where are the different, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Where's the context for this? Is it a sports thing? Is it whatever it is? Now there's multiple things and reasons and to be involved. And Brendan, as well as anybody, that the world that we're in has changed so much now, right?
Yeah, no, when we talk about San Diego Comic-Con, actually there were two events. The first one was March 21st, 1970. It was called Golden State Mini Comic-Con, or Comic Mini-Con. There were 100 people in the basement of the U.S. Grant Hotel in San Diego. Unreal. The second one was 6 months later, August 1970. They had 300 people and you got to think, when this was happening, it was very much a trade show. They had, 8-foot tables out with long boxes on it, and people were going to buy comics. You didn't have the talent. You didn't even have the writers and the artists and all that stuff there. It was really just buying and selling comics. So then even bringing in the talent of the writers, bringing in the talent of the artists, bringing in the publishers and things like that is a very, very new concept that only came around in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And when you look at, and I was using New York Comic-Con as an example, we had so many great announcements come out of New York Comic-Con, but the footprint of Artist Alley, the dedicated space that they have just to comics publishers on the second floor or the third floor, there's a whole section that's just comics and a whole section that's just Artist Alley. That footprint is 100 times bigger than any of these pure comics conventions. We're going to talk about a few of them, but pure comics conventions, if you want a pure comics convention, you can find them. They're out there, they exist. They're close to you. You don't have to fly to San Diego and get into a pool to try and get a hotel and be in a waiting room lobby for 6 hours trying to get tickets or whatever. You can spend $5 at the gate and go into a pure comics convention, and they've got some really great guests.
And so, Paul, how do you feel about that?
I'm sorry. I wasn't just asleep. What happened? Yeah,
I mean,
no, that's crazy.
I guess I'm misunderstood here, Eric. I thought Paul was with us the whole time. He should.
Paul's been here the whole time. I don't know.
Yeah, Paul. No, it goes back to that point you brought up earlier. Remember what you said 5 minutes ago? It's exactly in line with that.
Thank you, guys. No, thank you. That's exactly what I think. Comic-Con,
right?
Early beginnings. Was in a hotel, and it was just simple people getting together. Talking. Yeah, no, I've been here the whole time. I don't understand what's going on Steve's world over there, but yeah.
I'm more confused about the fact that you didn't have anything to contribute to what Brendan just had to say, which I thought, but listen, we'll make it easy for you. No worries. When we're talking about the comic convention scene and we talk about these local shows happen everywhere all the time. A lot of times in markets, they're smaller. They're a local show. When I tell you it's a local show, I'm saying that this might only be a 20, 25 table show. Whereas a comic convention generally is going to encompass hundreds, if not, upwards of the high hundreds to low thousands of booths when you get into the big show sizes. And, people have these opportunities. And if you don't support them in your market, then you're going to have a big show that's going to come in that's going to try to mass appeal to everyone, because that's the gig, right? I found with us in the Diecast Super Convention that we've adapted to where we have almost an all toy show concept on Sunday, just because we want to be able to offer our show space to other people. And then what it does is it does bring them into the world of diecast, right? Because you got the diecast vendors there. They come out for a toy collection. And then all of a sudden, hey, they're a Spawn collector and they see a Spawn car over here. Right. They're like, hey, I didn't know that exists. I'm going to get that, like whatever, right? So I understand why these shows get to going, but there are local shows. There's shows that you can, get to, and there are some regional shows. So Brendan, why don't you get us into a little bit of these shows? These are upcoming. These are shows within the next few weeks you could go to.
Right, Dan, and I picked them across the country. And I want to say this too. I got to say this: if you are a smaller show, if you're doing something at a library or whatever, I know it costs a little bit of money, but get a website designer, because some of these websites, you look at them, it doesn't show any of the guests, it doesn't show any of the events, there's no content. What is bringing people to your event? Because if you don't show me something, I'm just not gonna, like, even if it's in my town, if it doesn't show me a brief idea, the very basic concept of what your show is, I'm not going to show up. So these ones do have websites, but we've got North Carolina Comic-Con. This is in the Raleigh-Durham area. November 8th and 9th at the Durham Convention Center. This is almost exclusively comics. Listen to these guests, though. They've got Larry Hama, who is just legendary in the world of G.I. Joe. He did Spider-Ham, Weapon X, Elektra. You've got Fabian Nicienza from Cable, X-Men, Robin, Red Robin. Ron Garney did JLA, Uncanny X-Men, Captain America. Afua Richardson did Spider-Verse, Black Panther. Christos Gage is a name we all know. Superior Spider-Man, Batman Fortnite, G.I. Joe Cobra. So this is one of those things where you go, you get a comic book signed, you get to chat a little bit with Larry Hama. How many of us would not give, $20 or whatever to sit there and get a signature from Larry Hama and talk to him about, G.I. Joe or something cool that he's done with Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham is one of the most ridiculous comics that for some reason works. And the reason why is because of this guy. But this is just a local show. It's Raleigh-Durham. It's not huge, but you've got these massive world renowned talents who are sitting there for $15-20 are going to give you an autograph or give you a few minutes of their time or whatever. This is one of those things. I would go to this show if I was not across the country.
And this is the basis behind what the local show is. You bring a few guests, and then you appear on your theme and stay on your theme, right? And these work because of that. And they generally have a set where a majority of the vendors are going to be comic book vendors or comic book related vendors. You're not going to have a lot spinning outside of it because they're not all over the place, right? It's not like all of a sudden they're bringing in The Rock, who appeals to, this, that, the other, like whatever it is, right? There are shows that do that, go for mass appeal. These go for niche appeal. And when you go for niche appeal, you just have to deliver a good, solid product within your niche to be successful. And the next one that
because you already have the diehard audience anyway.
Exactly. And the next one that we were going to talk about is out in San Antonio, which is funny because it's in San Antonio, which San Antonio is a big city, but it's not a huge market, right?
From a great point. It's the same in the sports world. No, I said that multiple times. San Antonio is one of the 10 biggest cities in the country, but as a sports market, it's like it's a grain of rice compared to a lot of them. So that's so funny you say that. Yeah.
All right. So this one's CASA. It's Comics Arts San Antonio. This one takes place in a ballroom. It's at the Red Oak Ballroom at Norris Conference Centers. It's November 15th. It's a one-day convention, so it only runs for 7 hours, 10 to 5. But their comics guests are Anthony Tolan from Batman, Blue Beetle, Green Lantern. They've got Chris Allen, Captain America, Boba Fett, Black Panther. Chris Sheehan did Dark Empty Void. Mine is a long lonesome grave. He did red shirts for Star Trek. Corin Howell worked on Predator, Amazing Spider-Man, Lilith. Cully Hamner, JSA, Joe Fixit. Dave Marquez did Spider-Gwen, X-Men, Spectacular Spider-Man, and Justice League. It's another thing where they're getting this great talent coming in, but it's a smaller show. Even if there were big shows that bookend this, a lot of times these smaller conventions will come in and kind of fill the void because you might go 6 or 8 weeks without a big show or 6 months without a big show. If you can catch something on that third month that just kind of scratches the itch, or it's just a thing to do on a Saturday, this is a 7-hour show and it probably costs $5 to get in.
Well, and again, you set up a show like this where it stays niche and it has that. And look, one of Paul Vato's favorite creators is on there, Chris Sheehan. Tell us a little bit about your interest with Chris, Paul.
Yeah, Chris. Oh God, yes, of course. People named Chris, comes up, of course, from Christopher or Christine. And usually amazing artists. Just in the world of artistry, it's just unbelievable the things that these people bring. I'm trying to get them to my own convention that I'm putting together in Chicago, the Chicago Arts Cultural Artists, or CACA for short. I'm putting together my own comic book, Chicago Arts and Comics Association.
Well, you mentioned that you mentioned that in the first segment too.
100%. I don't know what's wrong with Steve, that he can't seem to remember anything that's been already said or going on or repeating himself. I'm getting a little, to be honest, a little frustrated dealing with the unprofessionalism where you guys obviously heard me say all this, but Steve somehow can't grasp that I've been here since the beginning. I wasn't asleep or something crazy.
We had technical difficulties, so we could only hear you. We couldn't see you was the thing, I think.
Well, and the problem is that when that's the case, because, I lead the segments and stuff like that, I actually can't hear him unless it's on the screen, right? So even during that time, I can only assume that while I was talking, Paul was just trying to talk over me, right? Like
that's exactly what happened. Let's not let the fans watch us fight. That's for the behind the scenes for the Patreon.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so let's try to keep it more professional.
All right. So the last one I want to talk about, and this one's still a small convention, but they do branch out a little bit.
Also, and whatnot.
Yeah, but before
they do branch out a little bit. So when you look at,
I just want to him that and Steve, you might be able to shed some light on this, but I feel like there's a value in 1 day, 2 day shows that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because honestly, I think it's becoming more and more of a thing that people really need to look at. You can run into fatigue with these events, right? And in the world of these events right now, in the trading card world, there is a heavy fatigue on shows. Like, it has gotten to a point where within a marketplace, and I can use Vegas as an example because there's a heavy oversaturation, right? If you're not being identified enough different, you're just another one, right? And that's where I think shows kind of miss. And so I think it's better to run a show that is successful and ends well. And I'll give you an example. We ran some smaller shows, and we ran them as 3-day shows, right? And they had a preview night on Friday, just a short 2-3 hours. Saturday, a full day, a 9-hour day type thing, right? 10-hour day. And then on Sunday, we were closing our show floor at 3. And people were like, wait, and I go, hold on. We gave you the preview night to make up for the hours we took off of Sunday, because we realize that the success of these shows will be what the perception of the show's success was. And if the last 4 hours of the show sucked, guess what? The first 4 hours, if they were great, aren't going to be called back on, because people's lasting impression is going to be what they last remember, not what they first saw.
So it's a classic scenario of quit while you're ahead, in a good way.
All the talent and all of the exhibitors anyway are packing up to leave on Sunday afternoon, whether the show floor is open or not. They want to get out of there. They want to catch their flights. They want to get back to their hotel. They've had a weekend. Like, half of the people are already gone that you came to see anyway. By the time, New York Comic Con at 4:00 on a Sunday is a ghost town.
I'll even say in the 3 conventions I've hosted with you and Steve, Brendan, I've even noticed that myself. I was all like, wow, it's not necessarily like people are checking out on Sunday, but you could tell it's starting to transition. And Paul Vato talks about that all the time. He knows conventions better than probably any man on earth. And he's already.
I thought you were going to say he knows transitions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also correct too.
Okay.
I'm more into trans fats, obviously.
Right.
Diets, but in all seriousness, I'm kind of. I was in a little fog earlier, so my apologies if I was out of line at all. But I've been here the whole time. But but in a serious note, even with all of Steve's ineptitude, the conventions that I've been that he's run have been amazing. I mean, it's as sincerely as it's kudos and much respect, because they're really run flawless. And I know it's like, what's that analogy where you see a duck above water, but you don't see the feet pedaling underneath. So I got to see
3 times in the show already.
Yeah, you don't see Steve throwing the tacos and stuff backstage in between segments.
Steve doesn't provide tacos. I mean, I've got to bring tacos to his help, but I don't mind,
even if it's 10 hours later than they were supposed to be, but it's okay.
So I do want to get to this third convention. So Fresno Comic Expo. So this one says comics right in the thing, but you'll notice they do branch out a little bit with their talent, but they're riding the trends 100%. So at the time that they were booking this talent, I guarantee you that Squid Games Chapter 3 was coming out and all this. So anyway, this is November 15th and 16th at the Fresno Convention Center. It's a smaller convention. It does branch out a little bit, but it's still very comic central. So they've got James Silvani, who works on a bunch of Disney titles, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, The Muppets. Aaron Sparrow is doing manga, and manga is huge right now. So, of course, they're going to do something like that. Greg Chun is interesting because he's the voice, the English voice of Song Gi-hung in Squid Games, which confused the hell out of me because you see the picture right there. The inset picture is of Lee Jung-jae. And I'm like, dude, they got the wrong Korean dude in the picture. But it's because he does the English dub of that character. And then our friend Sam De La Rosa is there. And obviously we know that he's huge. Venom Lethal Protector is one of the best Venom stories. And Sam was heavily involved in that. So you see they've got some big hitters in comics, but then they also brought in a few, cosplayers, and they brought in, Squid Games is riding trending right now, and so they want to get the trends in there and stuff like that. So they're very niche, but they're also kind of playing a little bit to what's in the news, and I think that's a smart thing to do even for the smaller convention.
Well, and let's talk about the difference in the market, right? If you were to compare, and I'm sure if we were to compare the size of Fresno up against the size of San Antonio, you would know that San Antonio is drawing to a much larger pocket of people compared to what Fresno is, even though the greater Fresno area expansion, but also travel in that marketplace is a little tougher to do, right? So you've got a more consensus group of people in San Antonio, heavier to that location compared to the Fresno location. So you have to open up and be a little more all-encompassed, whereas you can be a more significant niche. Look, we did that with PokeCon, where we did a Pokemon convention, but because we were center focused in Las Vegas, we're drawing from this direct market. We know that this direct market can support that niche show. Whereas if I go into another marketplace, I need to open up and be a little more, multifaceted to be able to have success, to be able to pull a variety of people from different places. So I see the differences between these two shows as purely based on what their market responsiveness can be, right? And I think that that's important for these producers. And then the other thing that people need to watch out for and do is that, look, these shows are running in November. Let's talk about why these shows are running in November. Because the big shows in Dallas are running in August and September, while these shows would be decimated because all of their people would travel to that big show in Dallas, and they're giving themselves enough room behind it to not just be, okay, you just spent all your money at the Dallas big comic, and pop culture art show, whatever it's called. And then all of a sudden I expect you to come to my place and do the same thing. Like, they know people can't do that. So generally speaking, when you're in a smaller market, and I have to call Vegas this, Vegas is still a smaller market. Even though it's a big city, it's still a smaller market when it comes to these type of events. Yeah. Part of that has to do with the fact that we have to be aware of what actually is in our marketplace. Look, we have casinos that put on amazing events nightly. And you're competing with casino money, which I am sorry to tell anybody, but you don't have that kind of money. It doesn't exist, right? Yeah. So when you're aware of this, you have to do things. We are very aware. We pay attention to what's going at what time, what kind of events there are. We pick dates based around that. That's how we forecast our dates. Just like we also look for things that support it at the same time. The Diecast Super Convention, we took a gamble on the dates based on how the NASCAR race features had been going, and we took a gamble on what the dates would be that NASCAR would be, and we guessed, and we were right, that NASCAR weekend would be the weekend that we go. Because now we're a supporting event to NASCAR weekend. So people that are coming to town for NASCAR weekend are like, well, what do we want to do? Saturday morning.
Well, that's why
there's a diecast show. Let's go.
We're a city that's always been based around live entertainment. Now we're based around live entertainment and sports. If you could work that into the mix, that's why the conventions throughout, or all the events rather, throughout a week at WrestleMania, throughout the week leading up to the Super Bowl. That's why
I just typed that in the notes.
It's the most perfect design. Logistically, Las Vegas is perfectly designed for it. And just in terms of how the culture surrounds it, because people already travel into Vegas on a weekend, like a weekly basis anyway, for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So they're definitely going to do it if there's something that much more appealing in their fan demographic, if you will.
No, absolutely. And you know, you do this, but you have to know your market and where you're at. If you're in a market and then you're like, oh, well, I can just do another show because another show is just another show. Like you're going to fatigue the market out. And that's where this has happened. And look, there was a period of time with the comic conventions when comic conventions were king, that there was all this fatigue. So then everybody started to try to morph and adapt. And then at the same time, we all try to hit trends too, right? That's why when you have niche shows that have showcased the fact that they can be successful in their niche, they will. And I'll give you an example of one that took the big city mentality and actually moved out here. And that's Designer Con. Designer Con was in Anaheim forever.
Oh, wow.
And they were known as an Anaheim Convention Center event. And they were all of this. But they came to Vegas. They came to Vegas because there was a multitude of reasons. One, the logistics of getting in and out of Vegas are significantly better than getting in and out of LA.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So that first and foremost is the biggest thing.
Night and day.
The second thing is that in Vegas, they can do a little bit more and open up a little bit more than what they might have to do in LA, because in LA, you're going to have such a large amount of people that are right within that area that will kind of keep people their ability to get into shows because they'll buy out tickets or buy out experiences or whatever it is. Whereas people traveling will be able to get and buy some of these experiences because people are having to travel to it. Right. And they understand that. And they're not relying on the local market to support their show. They're supporting the local market with their show, but they're not relying on it.
Yeah.
So when you don't have to rely on it,
it's their brand.
You are now in a place where you know, look, it's that old adage of know what room you stand in and who's in your room.
Know your audience.
And that's exactly where they're at. And that's why it works for them to come into a Las Vegas market like this. And when you have a big show like this can be a big show city. It can be a big show city because it doesn't need to rely on the local market to support it, right? But there should be events based for the local market. And that's a tough thing for a lot of people to understand. And then this is where a lot of these shows get really lost. And I'm not going to sit here and say that San Diego Comic-Con has gotten lost. In fact, what they've done is continued to trend set, right? They've adapted their show because they've understood the importance of it. And also too, these are not free shows. Like they're not being done out of, your local show can be done by somebody that goes, if I lose a few $100s, I had a fun weekend, right? These shows have to make money. They have to be profitable. They have to put people in the right motion, or otherwise you just don't do it, right? There's no reason to do it. And the only way to do it. And these shows are very important to the hobby spaces they support, whether it's comics, whether it's cards, whether it's toys, whether it is. And that's where the smaller vendor on these bigger shows has to take advantage of these smaller shows. This is where they need to live. Not saying they can't go to the big show. Go to the big show. Get there. Get a chance to do the big show. But support your local smaller show. And the reason you want to do that is because you're building that within your community. And that's going to be successful for you. And you're bigger there than you were, right, at that show, And Brendan, I know you've had that thought process for a while of like a small local show can be their big show, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I prefer a lot of times. See, the thing is, people see me at New York Comic Con or whatever, and they're like, oh my gosh, isn't this so much fun for you? And it's like, no, dude, I'm working. And this is a lot of work being here as press, because I'm walking to the press room, which is a mile that way. And I'm not exaggerating. It's a mile that way. and then I have to be over here at 10. I have to be here at 11:30. I have to be over here at noon. It's a lot of work. Whereas like these smaller shows, I can go and I can, the Bakersfield CollectorCon is one of my favorite local shows. One of our friends puts it on. He's got Leilani Shu. He had Marty Kleba there. He's got a bunch of voice actors. They've got a bunch of like toys. I love showing my kids the vintage toys. They see the He-Man, the actual, vintage ones out of box that we can like play with. And I can go, yeah, look what happens when you do this with his arm or whatever. Like those are the places that I enjoy being. That's what I'll do on my Saturday. But when I'm working, it is work. And I got to tell you, a lot of these smaller shows, the model is just not scalable to make into a massive thing, because if it's all long boxes, if it's all broken He-Man, you're going from booth to booth to booth, and it's all broken He-Man all day long. You're not going to spend 4 days there.
Right.
We watched one of the most successful trading card shows in our market become an all-encompass show with toys, comics, art, pop culture vendors, like all of this. And they scaled up because they went to that expansion. But they were kind of handcuffed being just the trading card show, because the all-encompass trading card show just wasn't enough.
You get pigeonholed. Right.
Right. Yeah. Whereas unless you're niche, which is why we chose to do PokeCon and stay specifically Pokemon, was to be that. And then at that point, I've had people say, oh, well, your show was a success. You should bring it back 4 or 5 times a year. No, if I bring it back 4 or 5 times a year, it's not going to be that.
Yep.
Right.
It needs to be an experience. And that's what we're doing, is create that. So you have to choose where you want to go. You're either all encompassed or be very good at your niche. And that's where I would encourage these showrunners to do, is be very good at your niche. Right. And when I look at the Fresno show, I'll tell you my opinion. This is purely my opinion. I don't care how much money they have, what that show is or whatever. But when I look at how kind of all over they were with their guests there, tells me that I could go produce an all comic show event in their market, become ingrained as their comic show, and take over that very quickly. Because that show should be focused on, we are a comic show. And you know what you do if you're going to be that? You surprise people and you do something out of pocket. And what I mean by that is that you bring in a Rob Liefeld. I know that's your favorite, but a Kevin Eastman, or one of the
you may notice in the next segment that Youngblood number 1 is not in the comics.
But no, seriously, the thing is that I mentioned that because these shows should go to that niche and then take advantage of it. And when I look back up the list and we're talking about it, and you bring up the North Carolina one, and you brought up Larry Hama, right? And Fabian, those two names by themselves, can drive a comic convention's traffic because of those two names.
Yeah.
So they know this North Carolina show. I would look at that and say, okay, this is someone that is putting forth a very solid effort in their market to be identified as their comic convention. Let them run with it. But then when I look down the list and I see Fresno, it's like Fresno wants to kind of be whatever they can be. It's like, no, that's probably not the best thing. And there's nothing wrong with adding a guest or two that kind of supports the things you're doing, especially you're doing a toy show, but a comic creator show is, blah, 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 or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Now, Paul, you sent a question, but I'll let you ask it here real quick. And then we are going to be going to break here soon. But Paul, your question was,
why do you have to be the way you are? No, my
who hurt you?
My question is actually serious. Would you ever consider having an all-encompassing show? Because I mean it with I love the fact what you did when I was there for the Hot Wheels show. I'm sorry, I call it the Hot Wheels show, the Supercar show.
No, a lot of people do.
But also Pokemon. You've done all these great conventions, and you continue to do them throughout the year. Would you ever consider whether it's yearly or biannually, or doing a show that encompasses all that, a super show? And would that be feasible? And if not, why not?
No. I'm glad you asked, because it's exactly that. So a show that has been produced through House of Cards Entertainment, who I've been the director of operations for quite some time. They have a brand which is known as Vegas Toy Con. But Toy Con is really an all entertainment style show. It's built to have the different niches represented in a strong fashion. we almost always have a wrestling footprint.
Yep.
We almost always have a creator footprint in the, comic world, even if it's small, but it's always creators that have brought the toys to life, right? That have given the storyline to the toys. And an example would be, bringing in someone that was involved with X-Men because the X-Men toy line is so strong, right? You would bring in a Joe Rubenstein because of his, connection to Wolverine, right? Or something like that. And then you go in and then we do voice actors, right? And the voice actors are the cartoons that then had, whatever it is, right? And, Brendan brings up David Boer, who we had out as a vending guest, right? So, David Boer comes out. Obviously, he's a Ghostbusters writer that fits that niche of Toy Con, but his is from the comic side. Then over here, maybe we have the Las Vegas Ghostbusters, who is a cosplay group who's set up dressed as Ghostbusters because there's going to be people selling Ghostbuster toys at this show. Do you see? So what you want to do is try to create an environment that encompasses those things, and then people can shop for the things that are within their niche interests. And you go up to a booth and there's a rack of wrestling figures. There's Ghostbusters here, there's this, there's that, whatever it might be. So, again, that's kind of how I see it. So coming in 2026, October, dates will be announced here soon. Vegas Toy Con will be back in Las Vegas. We'll be producing a show, and you guys will have that ability to be able to come out and check it out and everything. Now that we've got
a stage host for that show,
the great, listen, we can talk business elsewhere. We are getting ready to go to break. When we come back, we'll be talking about this week's upcoming comics. And there's some interesting ones. And I think there's going to be a couple that, I know the last one for sure, Paul Vato is going to want to talk about. So stick around on the C3 Pod.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comic-Con.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews, previews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comic-Con.com.
All right, welcome back to the C3 Pod. We are all hanging out, chatting about cool, nerdy pop culture stuff, sports, and everything under the sun. And we are coming this segment to discuss the new comics coming out for the week. We do this each and every week. We don't pick everything. And I think that's important because, unfortunately, this is just going to be another one of those weeks that unfortunately Rob Liefeld's just not going to be in this segment. But, maybe we'll get him next week. Maybe we won't.
Well, it's not 1991, to be fair. Okay. We're well past that.
I love how he's catching strays that aren't even strays. They're actually intended headshots, but we're passing them off as strays. But I agree. Well said, Brendan. Yeah.
I wish we had Eric on right then just to see his face. That would have been fantastic. But this segment is brought to you by the Nerd Bar, located in Neonopolis here in Las Vegas, Nevada, in the Fremont Street Experience, right on that Las Vegas Boulevard, Fremont Street interchange. Stop by, see them on the second floor. All kinds of cool nerdy stuff, and they've got a little bit of everything. I mean, look, everyone that's on the podcast here, not seen, is Eric, has had experience in the Nerd Bar, and all have different stories to tell from there. And it's funny because during our break, and I'm sure it'll be something that'll be in the Patreon, we were talking about some of our celebrity meetings and everything and people. And it's funny because it drew back this time where Sabu meets Paul, and Paul had no idea who Sabu was. It was just this guy.
That's a good one.
So he was just talking to this guy. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards he gets told who Sabu was. And then he's like, I didn't get a picture. I didn't all of a sudden it dawned on him who it was. And I'll never forget, because to us, you know what? Sabu was just that guy.
Yeah.
Because we knew Sabu.
Yep.
So it was, we were having drinks and just chatting and talking to his kids and all this stuff and everything. It had nothing to do, when I say his kids, I mean, not over the age of 21. Okay. But when we're talking about this and the kids and everything and all that, it's funny to see that we're all having this casual conversation, and Paul pulls right in. I'll tell you this, right? Paul will adapt to any environment that he's in. That is probably Paul's
He evolves,
best feature,
baby.
right?
Evolution.
Yeah, and he will just do it. And so, we were talking about that. It made me think of that. And then obviously the Nerd Bar being such a gracious, sponsor of the show. We appreciate them. So make sure you stop by and see them again. Neonopolis, Las Vegas, Fremont Street Experience, second floor. Make sure you stop by. See Johnny Borchata and the team over there. They'll take good care of you. A lot of fun. But we're into this week's comics, and this is where we let Brendan shine. And it's usually he stumbles over a solicitor or two, and we can't wait. We can't wait.
All right, the first one up is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man number 15. It says right on the cover there, new suit, new alien, new nemesis. The secrets of space revealed. Spider-Man takes on a challenge of a single combat to save his new crew and finds himself between a rock and a giant alien beast intent on his death. Not only does Spider-Man learn aspects of his quest that he didn't expect, but his companions learn things about Spider-Man they didn't expect. Witness the first full appearance of a major new character. And judging from that cover, it's got to be the Clintar suit, right? This one appears to be very tech-based. You see like the circuitry on it or whatever. It's a very dynamic cover. I like that. But I've got to ask, at this point, with all these new all these symbiotes and all these ones that are coming out or whatever, like, at what point does Spider-Man learn not to pick up the greasy, mysterious suit and put it on?
Right. And like if it gets to the point where you lose my pity, right? It's like if you stick your hand in the fire once, you don't know it's going to burn you. All right, fine, sympathy. If you do it like 5 times over, you deserve to get burned. So I'm with you. I think the cover looks awesome though, and it's funny because we talked so much about the ongoing, the volumes of the Amazing Spider-Man recently on the show, in fact. But it just goes to show again, if you have a good cover and it ties into the Spider-Man in any way, let alone the Amazing Spider-Man, immediately it's going to hook our attention. And now I'm interested. I could say that I'm not, but I would lie if I would say that I'm hooked.
Well, I think one thing I really like that they're doing with this, and I know I beat Marvel up sometimes with all the different iterations, is when they feature a character that they're drawing the attention of, this is going to have a big story arc. This character is going to have a big involvement of what we're doing. This is not just side character for 2 books that then has disappeared and gone and we don't hear from again, right? So I love the fact that they're presenting that to people so they can understand, because that does create that interest in this line, because you now know that this is going to be a storyline that's going to have some legs for a while. This guy doesn't have legs, but you get what I'm saying. Paul, what are your thoughts on the cover of Amazing Spider-Man 15?
That I love the colors, gold and black. I mean, come on, it looks amazing. And I don't necessarily know the history, but I love what Brett said about, it sounds like he just keeps trying on new costumes.
New suits that turn out to be evil aliens. It's happened like 4 or 5 times now.
Alien,
alien. Why do you keep doing that?
Alien goo. Yeah. It's like you're deserving at this point. You're asking for it. Right.
At this point, you're asking for it. Like, oh yeah, let me see what's in this. What's in this
Don't
box.
mind if I do. Yeah.
Don't mind if I do. Oh, somebody's looking out for me. No, they're not.
Wait, you know how much suits cost? You find a free suit, you put it on, you see if it fits.
Yeah. Right.
How much?
Got to get the mirror pick. Yeah.
How much do you think has anyone ever done a cost analysis on different superheroes' suits? Right. And would anyone do that? Because for me as a businessman, I would love to know, what does something like this cost, or what does it go for if it was to be really created?
Well, it seems like female superhero costumes have got to cost less because it's much less material.
I think maybe what we need to do is bring back the verses and then talk about like what suit costs the most and why, and then we need to assess what we believe it is. Argue that. That's not a bad idea.
Eric says that in the Marvel Universe, Reed Richards still has a side hustle making all the costumes. So maybe he's doing it pro bono. We don't know. Right.
At this point, Reed's profited enough. He's got enough.
I mean, he's just a businessman. Let's give him credit.
He's got to make ends meet, even when you're the smartest man in the universe.
He does.
The next one up
ends meet.
is Planet She-Hulk #1. This is the premiere issue of She-Hulk as the protector of Skaar, the world first introduced in Planet Hulk. It's one of 4 titles that relaunched Marvel's Galactic Universe. I didn't know the Galactic Universe was becoming a thing, but apparently it is.
Right.
It says Scar Party of One. She-Hulk is back, and she's stuck on Scar. We already okay. Spinning out of Hickman's hit cosmic epic Imperial, Jennifer Walters made a promise to her cousin Hulk to watch the planet Sakaar and its people for a few days, but it's been longer than a few days, and the She-Hulk is now in charge of keeping peace on a planet at war. But Jennifer's a very different Hulk than the one that once smashed Sakaar into submission. Is she up for the task? This cover is dope. Like, you look at the vanquished foes at her feet, and she's in, this is very Game of Thrones. It's very like vanquishing conqueror. You know, if this is the person who's in charge, you see, you know, she's obviously skilled with those weapons that are strewn all about. And that look on her face is just pure deadlocked focus.
And it runs in line with what we've seen from Planet Hulk before. It has the exact same aesthetic. It seems like it has the exact same theme, the exact same tone. This is exactly what Bruce Banner was doing in the Planet Hulk angle that became so iconic in the recent history of Marvel Comics, that Marvel on the big screen really try to adapt elements of that throughout Thor Ragnarok, and now even things that we're seeing with She-Hulk now. And that may be ongoing, especially because this all goes back to Jonathan Hickman, and whose source work, whose material is going to be the basis of the next 2 big Avengers crossover films. It's going to be Jonathan Hickman's work. So, this is as relevant as it gets, kind of like what Steve talks about, like when Marvel, some of their stuff is more topically relevant or, culturally relevant. A lot of times it's just a cash grab, but this is actually like very much in line with what they're trying to do, both on the pages and on the big screen.
When you do a callback on a cover like this to, a previous release line, this always equals success. So I see it from that standpoint. I think that this line has a chance to live, and the fact that it's going a little different angle than some of the other comics are, it's not going to create so much crossover in the other, title lines as much as it will keep its own story arc, which I think right now a lot of comic book readers are missing that they don't want as much crossover as they're getting.
Right.
But who knows? What's up next, Brendan?
All right, next up is DCKO Knife Fight #1. This one's got the first appearance of the Batmen of the future as a team. It says experience Batman's epic journey through the explosive DCKO event. That's hard to say. The Dark Knight is forced to take a different path in the tournament for the Heart of Apocalypse, one that's turned Gotham into a deadly arena where Batman must battle against the Batmen of the future. Who are these Batmen? Stay tuned to find out. I love this cover. That bat suit, I'm a little confused about. It looks a lot like the Asbat from Nightfall, Jean-Paul Valley, when he was doing Batman.
Yep.
But if you look in the back there, you see different versions of the bat suit. I'm assuming those are going to be the Batman of the future, and they're just hinting enough. You get some ideas of who each of those might be, but they're not quite outright saying. I think this is a very dynamic cover. The flames are great. The suit is great. It's torn up from battle. Like this is very Batman, and this cover right here, like I said, it teases some of the things that are coming, but you also have a little bit of speculation because they're not outright saying.
And it's a blast of the past. Like you said, it goes back to the Nightfall days, which is an iconic run, and just sort of like something that, and like I kind of talked about with Hickman is being adapted now, there are elements of the Nightfall era that have very much been adapted in the popular culture too. So I think, I'm with you. I think this is, quintessential Batman.
Paul, are you one of the Batman of the future?
I'm the Hedgehog of the future, but but okay, answer me this though, and maybe you just answered it, but I didn't know the reference. That suit looks like the original Batman. I mean, am I wrong, or what's going on with that?
The undersuit, the one on the bottom, his tights and trunks and everything look very much like the classic Batman. But what I'm talking about is the buckles. Right. The buckles, the pouches, the weaponry and stuff. There was a time where Bane broke the bat in Nightfall, and they used that in one of the films, the Christopher Nolan films. They broke the bat, but Azrael was another character who was a vigilante, and Bruce Wayne called on Azrael to become Batman in his absence because you can't just let Gotham be Gotham; it's going to destroy itself.
He was relief pitcher Batman. Yeah.
So Azrael comes in, and initially he's in the regular. initially he's in the regular bat suit, but then he starts adding in elements of Azrael and other things on there, and to where the bat suit becomes unrecognizable because it's got all these additions on it that are so Azrael, it's not even Batman anymore. And now you've got this as Bat. So when Batman comes back, now he's got this adversary who was a foe, or who was a friend, who is now a foe. It's like this whole weird thing where somebody goes, yeah, dude, I'll help you out, and then takes it there a whole other direction that is nothing what you expected, and you kind of got to rein them in. It's a great storyline. I love it.
Yeah, iconic.
But there's so many extra like belts and pouches or whatever, because Azrael used like guns and stuff too, so he had like ammo pouches and things on there, right?
Yeah, he went a different direction than Bruce Wayne, right? Which was really a part of the whole tension between them, essentially.
Well, and the DCKO concept is definitely doing well. People are definitely digging.
There it is.
Here's the suit that they're referring to.
And Eric says the one of the left might be Damian from Batman number 666, to referring to Damian Wayne, who's as popular as it gets now too. So, right.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it's very
that was Paul Vato's thought too. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, we have another cover. There's a John Boy Myers cover. Let's take a look at that one. Again, the suit very reminiscent of what you're discussing and talking about. But now you can see he's got the blades on his hands. Down there. So there are some adaptations to this to make this a lot more aggressive. And that is definitely what they're looking for when they're talking about DCKO line.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that's interesting to me are those 3 pouches that they added at his navel, to where like they couldn't fit the bat symbol in and had to bring it down onto the pouch. It's like, you didn't need those 3 pouches at all. Like, so that issue didn't have to be an issue.
I mean, maybe he needs gun clips there. Maybe, maybe we're changing it up here.
Is Rob Liefeld an advisor on this one?
I mean,
because I don't see feet. I don't see feet, and I see a ton of pouches.
I would tell you what, going back to the Patreon, you have to, guys, you'll have to check the Patreon out to understand what we're talking about.
Cut these clips, Eric. This is how we're going to get them on the show. We're going to piss them off.
This is the thing: is Eric keeps adding. Come on. Eric keeps adding these gems into the chat where he should just come on already and say the things.
Yeah, that's why we need his insights, man.
This is the segment that Eric really should be a regular on, is the 3rd segment. I'm just saying.
With the gun, it might be Jason Todd under the cowl. Of course, the red hood, right? It could be. I mean, he's resorted to those tactics as well. I mean, that's kind of the whole theme of Batman in the last like 30 years, basically, to use or not to use a gun. It's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, cool. All right, the next one up is
that's what I was thinking. Also,
yeah, of course.
I'm sure.
The next one up is Harley and Ivy, Life of Crimes #1. This series is going to explore the origin of Harley and Poison Ivy's relationship. It says, because you demanded it, a new series entirely about Harley and Ivy's relationship. I just said that. Okay. Witness the entire story of the DCU's #1 criminal couple from the very start. Now, the issue that I have with this, we talked about with some other covers before, is this is not a kid's title. This is, this is one of those ones where it's so juvenile what they have on the cover right here. When you're talking about one of the darkest characters in the DC is Harley Quinn, and then Poison Ivy and whatever, and it's like it's so whimsical, and the line work is so it's so like Saturday morning cartoons that it's like I would not pick this up for anything. Like nothing about this cover makes me want it.
And I think a lot of this is off the success of the animated show that taps into this relationship probably more than any other adaptation has. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of it either. My guess would be that, and it's not necessarily a direct spin-off of it, but you could tell that it taps into that element because that's more of an adult animated comedy type of show as opposed to the darker side of it.
Well, it kind of looks like you see the lines that are running from the upper right corner down to the bottom. It kind of looks like they're overlaying the more serious stuff with the more whimsical stuff.
No doubt.
But the faces and the bodies or whatever are what is really playing as whimsical for this whole thing.
Yeah, it's jarring. It makes sense because it's relevant to what they're trying to do with these two characters. But if you look at it, you're all like, not exactly what first comes to mind for most fans of either of the two characters.
Right.
Oh. Steve had some thoughts, though. Yeah, because Steve.
No, I'm trying to understand their shading that they did on this.
Right.
No, that's the thing. So if you look at the darker ones, you see like very on weird. Ivy, her right shoulder is in that other suit, and then her thigh and her left knee are in the other suit. It looks like it's two scenes that are juxtaposed over each other.
Same with Harley.
And they're trying to show the whimsical with the lighter part, and then the darker elements with the darker shading. But it's like it doesn't read well. It's a very hard cover to figure out what the hell's going on here.
No doubt.
That's my problem with it. You know, the storyline has a reader, right? So from that standpoint, I understand why they're doing the book and how they have it, because they've tested that there's a, you know, a faction of readers that want this type of storyline. It is more of an adult oriented storyline. And so you're right. The presentation of the cover doesn't do that justice, but I just, when you lose me in your cover art because I can't figure out what your intended purpose was, that's where I have a tough time. And I just,
like, I saw you chewing it over. Like, you were,
I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it. I'm trying to figure out, and like, I'm even looking and like in the dark stuff, the dark side of things is more like, I don't know, it's apocalyptic. But then the outfits that are in the dark, the portions that are in the dark are kind of not reminiscent to that. Maybe Poison Ivy's is. But then if you're changing the outfits like that and you're doing that, why aren't the faces changed?
Well, they are, though. If you look at Harley's face, half of it is the hood with the black eyeshadow, and the other half is the ponytail.
Yeah, but it's not following the line. That's my issue.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's not following.
And I want to point out, I'm not saying this is adult content because they have a same-sex relationship. I'm saying it's adult content because of who Harley Quinn is historically through the comics and who Poison Ivy is historically through the comics. It has nothing to do with who loves who. That's not my issue here. My issue here is that they're both very dark characters that do very dark things, and this is a very whimsical cover for that kind of just antisocial, just somebody gets in your way, stab them is the kind of thing that happens with these characters. Cool. And Paul Vato fell asleep again.
I'm not sold on it. I don't see it being one that is going to be a big title at all, let alone, for us individually. I get the purpose behind it, and I know why you picked it to talk about.
Well, no, and these two as a couple, there's a lot of fanfic. There's a lot of shipping that's happening with them and stuff like that. So I know that they're writing.
The whole show like took off essentially because of this. And you had Kaylee Cuoco doing the voices. Like there's basically.
Oh, now I got to watch it. Kaylee Cuoco.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she does a great job. It's a hilarious show. If it's one of those shows that pays, basically it's very, very DC. The people who write it do a good job of immersing it into the canon and into the universe of DC. But the approach is so much different than anything they've ever done. It's almost like you take Family Guy and put it in like a comic book world. It's clever. It is. Yeah.
Nice. Paul, thoughts?
Kiss each other. No.
There you go. All right, Paul.
JK.
Okay.
JK.
So next up is no, nothing. All right. Next up is Echo Secret of Truth #1. This is going to have the first team appearance of the Wisteria Meadows cult. It says the new age of Echo. When her cousin goes missing in Los Angeles, Echo goes to the City of Angels to find out what happened to her. But what she discovers is a series of disappearances centered around a mysterious wellness cult called Wisteria Meadows. I think Echo was a series, and this is the next chapter in the series. I'm not super familiar with Echo, but I love this cover. I love the watercolor. I love all of the little like scribbles or whatever. They're building it up as kind of a mystery. And so, you can imagine somebody's notes that they're taking as they're figuring out different information or whatever. They're going to have this hectic kind of connection, the wall of the strings all tied together and stuff. And I think that all comes through on this cover. It's a great cover.
Well, a lot of times, like these little nods that are in here could actually be callbacks to things down the road. And so, and she's got my father's hand on, right? You see what I'm saying? Like that writing may actually come to like a callback to a time period where they like remember that conversation or whatever. I love when they do this, the Easter egg cover thing. That's something that I really dig. Just like they have the hand in the Echo logo, right? That handprint that's up there. Yeah. And like, I almost wonder if like over time that hand will change to different characters.
Yeah.
Or whatever it might be. Like, I love stuff like that. So, and I do love the color use. I think that's pretty cool. This is more of like an art cover, Paul, and less of, a direct information cover about the book. Don't you think?
No, I do. I love it. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just do a one-liner and quit on the other one.
No, you don't.
I've been taking an art class, actually, art appreciation 101 to occupy some of my time on sailor.org, which is a free college thing. So I'm really thinking about specializing in comic book art because it's so diverse. I mean, I love, the cover before just reminded me of my childhood, and at the risk of aging myself. So I love that. But I was also like, when Frank Miller's like Batman, came out, and the darkness and the way that was done. And then Conan the Barbarian, I was always such a big fan of that. But yeah, this is more like an art piece. I can see that with the almost watercolor or maybe oil. I mean, it's beautiful. I love it. And there's just so much going on in the different comic book covers that I do really appreciate the variety. And I love that you guys know so much about it.
I'm kind of looking forward to this next cover and this next title because, again, whenever you do callbacks to our childhood, not Paul's, but everyone else's, because Paul's kid in the 90s. But when you do it and you bring it back, I love to see what they do with the current adaptation to try to draw interest to it, but then still keep us interested in it. So this next one is a Thundercats book, right?
Right. So Thundercats Pumira #1. It's the origin of Pumira. We love a good origin story. And the smartest thing they did about this one, well, let me read the solicit first. One cat against the world in the aftermath of a war against the mutants who claimed that a war that claimed her parents' lives, an orphaned Pumira is taken in by Jaga, who sees untapped potential. Okay, can we start over? Like the whole, untapped potential in the scrappy young cat. As she grows, Pumira, still angry at the universe over the loss of her parents, trains under Jaga in the art of healing and discovers the power of compassion to transform the pain into hope. Okay, so back to my first point. The smartest thing that they did on this was that they roped in Ed Brisson as the writer. We know him from Old Man Logan, Amazing Spider-Man, Absolute Carnage. So they're dragging in the 90s crowd, the people that were growing up in the 80s and 90s with Thundercats on television. They got a great writer on it. And the cover here is very reminiscent of the old style of art that they did in that show. But it's also got a little bit of a modern take on it. There's a couple little differences that are very, very slick, but you can find them. But this is going to bring in new readers because of Brisson being on the writing end of it. And it's also going to get that nostalgic dollar from folks like me who grew up with the Thundercats who would buy this in a second.
Well, this has that vintage feel for sure. And the logo obviously is done very well to where it feels very like retro, but it's not. And I love that, that being, part of this. And then you also know I'm a sucker when there's big, blank space on books. I really like when the character is pulled off of the background, right? I'm always a proponent of that. Brett, were you a big Thundercats guy or?
Actually, not at all. But you know what? It's kind of runs in line with what Brett says, because there's a lot of franchises that are from the same, time period, or really just kind of running theme with the Saturday morning cartoon type of aspect. There's numerous Hanna-Barbera cartoons I have loved that are from the same era. There are numerous, it's same kind of thing with He-Man. Never really got into it, even in the retroactive sense. But I definitely agree with the fact that this will always lure people in, because nostalgia is thrown around a lot, maybe like a little bit too much, but this is a true nostalgia grab and it works. So even though I myself am not a huge Thundercats guy, I think this is perfect. And I think it's the right kind of cover, because this is the type of action. I know enough about the characters to know what they're at their core, what they're all about. And this is perfect for Pumira. I think it's pretty cool.
And definitely I want to mention, guys, that we will most likely on the Patreon have a good callback to the very beginning intro of this segment, in which I spoke about Brendan's ability to read the solicit flawlessly. So, definitely look for that. That'll be something. But
it only happens when we're recording. It never happens on a stage. I never stumble over words on a stage.
So, staying on the topic or conversation of the retro to modern, Aliens versus Captain America, they're now taking the versus deeper with the aliens.
You knew this was going to happen when Marvel got the alien rights. Is they're going to have Alien and Predator go against every Marvel superhero, every Marvel supervillain. So This is Alien versus Captain America. It's a 4-issue limited series that pits xenomorphs unleashed by Red Skull against Captain America. It's World War II, and Hydra seeks a new weapon to defeat the Allies to win the war. It's Weyland Yutani was trying to weaponize the Xenomorphs. Now Red Skull's doing it for the Nazis. You can see it's a very kind of tight scope for what they're trying to do here. It's a 4-issue series. This cover is great, but I actually really love the next cover. And this is an open order cover. It's a Dan Panosian foil variant. That's the next slide, Eric. And this one right here, I think
face hugger. That's cool.
Yes. I love how they got the imagery of the Xenomorph in the back and of the facehugger is very much in line with the posters that they were doing for the film when they were originally coming out.
That looks like it could be a movie poster, you know, when you're walking out of the cinema or in the theater. That's exactly what it looks like. And the first one, interestingly enough, looks like an old school, especially in the top left with the 20, if Eric wanted to go back on the 20th Century Studios. That looks really cool too. So both go back to like this one goes back to the 1940s film reel type of feel. And the other one goes back to the more modern day type of cinematic poster, promotional poster type of feel. But with you reading right there, the solicit, I'm honestly hooked. Like World War II.
If you saw this cover though,
Xenomorphs,
if you saw this cover in a solicit, would you think this is an open over cover? You would think this is an incentive cover because it's that good, but this is just the C cover.
Yeah,
I would go see this movie.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It looks awesome.
Like this movie poster would get me. I'd be like, oh, dude.
Yep. Walking out.
Facehuggers, like head turn. Let's go. No, this is done very cool. Again, these lines are fun. To me, these are fun, right? These fall right in line with the what ifs, right?
It's like a kid in a toy box.
Are always, short, direct storylines, move through pretty quickly. I don't know that I like the fact that it's Red Skull unleashing the whole, because I would be a little bit more apt of the aliens came at a time period and Captain America had to, defend the Earth. That's a little different, but that's the predictable one. The better one probably is what they've chosen. There's a lot of people that concept these things that are a lot smarter than Paul is. And so, always, figure that they're going to figure it out a little better than Paul might. But Paul, you're an Aliens fan though, right?
Is that a personal dig? You mean like illegal aliens, or do you mean aliens?
No, I've actually thought that you liked the movie Aliens.
I do. Of course.
Okay.
Aliens, all of them. And I mean, this would be a great movie, just like I think Brett said.
It looks amazing. Yeah, it looks sick.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Paul, this last book is for you. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead.
Alien versus Hedgehog.
No, this
Captain America versus Hedgehog.
Oh my gosh, I lost. Hang on.
Which one am I?
Hang on.
There you go.
Okay.
The last book to talk about is Paul's book.
Yeah, I accidentally closed the window because I was pulling up Giger because the other point that Eric just made, because Eric's not on the segment right now that he should be on, is that this very much looks like the drawings in Giger's book when they came to him and they're like, hey, we're doing this film, and he came up with the concepts. The sketches that he did, this very much looks like it's straight out of the sketchbook that H.R. Giger sent over for them to develop the Xenomorphs off of.
So awesome. Number 10 is Ice Cream Man.
Right. So Ice Cream Man has been around for a minute, and it's a great horror series. There are a bunch of just individual stories, and I think each comic is a story in itself, and then you read them together, and it kind of creates this world where there's just this horror that has a common theme. But this one, it's an interesting concept. It's Ice Cream Man, the Mortal Coil Shuffle Card Set Special, and they're soliciting it as a comic book story told through 55 playing cards. So it's a beautiful custom designed deck of cards featuring custom backs and a custom box. All art, as ever, is by Ice Cream Man stalwarts Morazzo, Chris O'Halloran, and Good Old Neon. Some cards will tell part of the story, while other cards cast inscrutable spells on unwitting characters, and some must be joined with other cards to form a complete piece of art. It's the deck's version of a spread. It's the first of its kind comic experiment, and perhaps also the last. The other thing about this is they are never going to reprint this. So the number of copies that get sold or get made and get sold, that's it. It said it will be printed once and once only, no second printings, no new runs, and never ever collected in trade of any kind. It exists, and then like magic, it will not. So this is an interesting concept because they're soliciting it as a comic book, but it's a trading card game. And I'm curious because I've seen some of the stuff that these guys have done before and some of the things that Image has done. Sometimes they'll pull a little thing where like there's, 1 in 20 is a little different than all the rest or whatever, like the cards inside. I'm curious to know whether all the cards match, whether there is going to be a special foil card inside or a different version of a card, or if there's different endings or exactly how it plays out, if you have to play the cards in order, or if the story changes as you play the cards. Nothing like this has ever been done. And it's fascinating to me.
I mean, this has that role play game concept, that Magic the Gathering, idea and concept behind it. That should be where you're kind of choose your own adventure. What I think is cool is, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, so the premise of Ice Cream Man and all of this stuff, everything had a huge influence on the Dexter storyline from the TV show Dexter, right? Because it was the whole serial killer, like killer concept, the whole, and it's really cool that like I'm seeing the imaging of this. And I'll be honest with you, this almost reminds me of what some of the Dexter influence might be coming back on, right? Like the look of this and that, because the callbacks in Dexter to the ice pick and all of this stuff and everything kind of has this same kind of imaging style in a way, which is kind of interesting to me. I think I love when you see influence, right? When you see, an artist influence or something, and it would be hard for me to say that it's some way along the line that wasn't thought of. It may have been afterthought, but it may have been there. And then obviously trading cards are just hot right now. This would be a big one. But Paul, we thought in particular this cover for you, this book, this is really right up your alley, right?
This is 100% right up my alley because I don't know if you guys know this or not. Maybe the people listening don't know this yet, but Ice Cream has always had a very soft spot in my heart because my first business was a store called Oberweis Dairy of Geneva, and that was in Geneva, Illinois, at the train station. So at 23. That was my first business. I had it for 7 years before I sold everything, and then moved to Los Angeles to start my acting career. In the meantime, I started studying at Second City and whatnot. But yes, the Ice Cream Man is definitely right up my alley. It's a bittersweet thing because when I bought the shop, I was 200 pounds. 7 years later, when I sold it, I was 300 pounds, and I've been battling this weight ever since. I'm back down to the 300-pound fighting weight, but I got up to like 360. But that's a story for another time. But yeah, as much as that affected my health, I think this is such a great concept, and I've always been a big fan of Magic the Gathering. These cards look very similar to Magic cards. Right now, I play something called Shadow Era online, which is an online trading card game like this, fantasy and whatnot. Where can I get this? Because this is something I do need to have in my life. I do need to buy it. I do need to collect it. I love the fact that it's never going to be made again. So yeah, if you could give me a little direction on this, I would love to pick one up.
I will need to check and see if we ordered this. I let our team at the shop kind of decide what, titles that we're carrying and everything, because they're a little bit more on ground level with, the collector and consumer coming in. So I would assume we ordered some level of this. I'll have to find out what we did, and then I'll let you know.
Interested to know if the cards, because it's 55, and if they did 9 cards per sheet and they were in here like as perforated sheets, then 55 is not a multiple of 9. So I'm wondering like what the cards, because it also mentions a box. So is this an actual book that you tear the cards out of and tear them apart? In which case, are the
what's the remainder?
Comics, when the ones that are uncut and untouched and unplayed with. So this is one of those things with, there are people who buy comics as collectors who will never touch them, who send them off to be slabbed and stuff. And there are people who buy them to read them. In this case, if you have to destroy it to play it, you're going to have copies of this that exist that are untouched. And then you're going to have copies of this that are played. And then what does the value differential in the secondary market 10 years down the road? What's that going to mean? That the cards are taken out, but they're intact and the corners are nice on them. But here's one that's never been touched. It's a very interesting concept. I want to see it. I want to hold it. I want to look at it. And I just by like this cover right here, I would buy this thing instantly. They could put a $15 price tag on this and I would buy it.
Paul Vato just says he needs at least 3 copies. So he's clearly adamant about bringing it in.
Yeah, he wants one of each.
Yeah.
He wants one of each, one to play with, one to look at, and one to grade.
Speaking of speaking of selection here, Paul, what was the flavor variation like at your ice cream parlor?
Well, it definitely wasn't 31 flavors, but it definitely was some of the best ice cream you could ever eat. It's this company Oberweis. Back before it was even popular to be bovine growth hormone free. You know, we had that. I had a $5 milkshake, which at the time was unheard of. This was in like 93. You know, milkshakes were 80 cents. So to charge someone $5 was unheard of. And then Pulp Fiction came out and they mentioned the $5 milkshake. But 20% butter fat. So like chocolate peanut butter with the peanut butter and chocolate ice cream. My favorite has always been like a butter pecan or brickle, but butter pecan definitely my favorite. And again, 20% butter fat. It melts very easy because there's such a high butter fat content. The shakes.
I had no idea that you were such an ice cream aficionado.
For real.
But the 31 flavors thing does not refer to how many flavors of ice cream were in the shop. Because at any given time, any Baskin Robbins has over 100 flavors in shop. The 31 flavors was Mr. Baskin was saying, he was bragging at a party that he could have a different flavor of ice cream every day of the month, and the most days in a month is 31. So it never had anything to do with how many were there, but that he could go in for a solid month and pick a different flavor.
Plus, that's a long time, and they've been around a long enough time to where if they were going off the 31 flavors, y'all, really, you're never going to mix it up. So that actually probably makes more sense, even though most people don't think of it that way.
Well, and even when you're talking about, 31 flavors, 31 options, 31 of anything, how about 31 seconds for Paul Vato to do his promotional shtick?
Yes.
And we gave you a whole another second, considering the fact that you joined us, early. So Paul, take it away.
Wonderful. Please, I just want everyone to come over to paulvato.com. Right from there, you can find my school community. You can find my Vato coin. What I really need help with is 500 unique holders so that we can get on Coinbase. We're almost there. We're at 300 unique holders of the Vato coin. Even if you just buy $1, that's a unique wallet. So we just need 200 more.
Look up Baskin Robbins flavors.
So I'm going to do an ice cream coin as well as the Vato coin, a cigar coin, a rum coin. I've got my Parsley rum hat. But more importantly, just go to paulvato.com, and right from there you can find us across all social media. And guys, I really enjoy doing this podcast with you guys every week, and I think it's really coming together. For having me, but more importantly, what I want to tell you about is this Vato coin. My God, please.
No, Siri, I said Baskin Robbins flavors.
Anyone still there? You guys listening?
Baskin Robbins flavors.
All 31 of them. You'd rather talk about ice cream than the Vato coin, but okay. Okay, guys. VatoCoin.com. Are you still there? Hello? Hi. Hello. I want to tell you about. All right, we can talk about Baskin Robbins 31 flavors.